Hi everyone, welcome to the next lecture on the deep learning practice course, and today we are going to focus on the hands-on side on the transformers library, but to understand the context of why we are using it, we'll look at some concepts on language modeling, the famous GPT model, and what is pre-training, right? And then we'll see how all of this we can do within the Hugging Face ecosystem. Okay, so let's start. So far what we have done is we have learned this datasets package. So we learned how to load a dataset from Hugging Face or even from outside it, how to save it to the disk, how to use the datasets module, iterate over the samples. All of this we have seen so far. We have also seen the tokenizer, right? How to take a piece of text, how to first learn the vocabulary, how to learn the tokenizer, different tokenizer algorithms, and then given a text, how to encode it, either a single piece of text or a batch text, and then also once the output is generated in tokens, how do you decode the model's prediction and produce text out of it, right? Now today what we are going to learn is how to initialize a model. So we'll focus on the transformers library. So we have looked at datasets, we have looked at tokenizers, we have looked at tokenizers.encode, tokenizers.decode, and now we are going to look at the transformers model, right? This module in Hugging Face. So let's this is the context, so now let's start with some concepts, right? So over the years, what is happening is that the dataset size keeps growing, right? And you had like initially there was the books corpus, which was used to train BERT style models. Then people started using Wikipedia, then Open Web, Real News, C4, and now the roots corpus and many more, right? I mean, even bigger corpora have been released now, right, in the past 6 months or so. So this is constantly growing. And along with that, the model size also keeps growing, right? So this is an interesting sort of cartoon where if you look at the number of synapses in different organisms, so a fruit fly has 10⁶ synapses, a honeybee has 10⁹, and so on, right? And the human brain has 10⁻15 synapses. Now, if we sort of compare this to where the model sizes are today, so the initial transformer model was around 400 million parameters. Then we had GPT-2, which was 1.5 billion. Then the Megatron LM, then a GPT-3, then the G-Shard, switch transformer, and so on. And it's constantly increasing, right? And these are all different large language models, as they are popularly called now, which are trained on massive amounts of data, which we saw on the previous slide. And model scaling, which is just increasing the number of parameters in the model and training it on larger and larger data sets, is becoming very popular, and it also produces good results, right? So recently, around a couple of months back, the Llama 405 billion parameter model was released, right? And it was trained on roughly 15 trillion tokens, and it gives very good results on multiple tasks that it has been tested on, right? So scaling the amount of data, scaling the amount of parameters in a model seems to give very good results, right? And these are what are known as I said, large language models. So we'll learn a bit about them today, and then sort of see how to pre-train like a smallest large language model on a reasonable amount of data that we can do in a Jupyter notebook, right? So what is happening, right? How is this space growing? How are models evolving over time, right? So if you look at the transformer based language models or large language models, there are three main categories. One is what are known as the encoder only models, right? Which was the BERT model and its variants. Now again, some of this I covered in the course on large language models, and you may need some more background to do this. I'll not go into details of this. The video lectures are available. We'll do some background, but not a lot of it. I won't be able to cover the multitude of models that we show here. Yeah, so these were popular for around 2 to 3 years when they came out, and then the focus shifted on the decoder only models, which is the GPT style of models, which is currently the most popular sort of architecture for training these large language models. Even the closed source ChatGPT model is believed to be a decoder only model. and the Llama model is also a decoder only model, right? And a few other models from deep tech industry are also decoder only models. And then there is the third branch, which is the T5 style models, which are encoder and decoder, right? So they have an encoder as well as a decoder. So again, three paradigms: encoder only models, decoder only models, and models which have both an encoder and decoder, right? So encoder decoder models did not become as popular as the decoder only models, and the current sort of landscape is dominated by these decoder only models, and there are many such models, right? And what is changing over time is that you scale the model. That means keep increasing the number of parameters in the model, and as you know, in a transformer architecture, you could do this by increasing the number of layers or by increasing the model dimension, right? The number of attention heads as well as the size of the concatenated output of these attention heads, or the size of the hidden representations of the feed forward layer, or all of this, right? And then there are scaling laws on how much you should scale the data as compared to the size of the model, right? So the recent trend, as I was saying, the past 6 months is like just keep scaling the data and the model both, right? And they both sort of help in different ways, right? And the tree is just growing, right? It is sort of many models are coming out, and it's like an ever evolving space. And we have days like, or at least a week, in which 4 to 5 very big models will come out, all powerful, all claiming to be next generation as compared to what the previous version was, and doing much better than them. And typically it's either data scaling or model scaling, or a combination of both, and either data in the pre-training or fine-tuning or the preference ranking data, right? All of these may seem like terms which you are not clear about, but that's not required for now. I'm just sort of giving you a overview of what is happening in this space, right? And there are models from many deep tech companies, as you can see, Meta, Hugging Face, Google, all of them listed here. Okay. Yeah, even if you focus just on the decoder branch, right, it's still quite large, and there are like too many models which have come out in this branch, right? So all of these models, right, they go through a phase called pre-training, right, where they are pre-trained on a large amount of text data, and they do something known as next token prediction, right, which means they try to predict the next token given the previous k tokens, and then there's a loss function defined on top of that. And you can train this with very large amounts of data, because any text from the web you can take, right? You can just keep the first five words in the sentence and keep the sixth word as the token to be predicted. So the training data sort of comes from free, and which is the reason for like being able to scale the training data progressively, right? Or there's now at least some sort of cap is reaching close to a cap, at least on the amount of data available on the web, but still it's not fully explored yet, right? Okay, so what we'll now do is we'll try to understand the GPT model, right? The one such decoder only model, which is sort of the inspiration for many other models on this branch. So we look at what the GPT model looks like, what is the training objectives that it uses, and so on, right? So that we get some sense of what a large language model is, and then we will sort of try to do a basic pre-training in the Hugging Face ecosystem. So let me start by motivating, right? So in the deep learning course, we had seen the transformer architecture in the context of machine translation. At a higher level, you could think of it as something which takes a sequence of tokens or text as input and produces a sequence of tokens or text as the output, right? Now, what if you want to use this architecture for other NLP tasks, right? Say sentiment classification, right? Where you have a sequence of tokens and there's only one class that you want to predict at the output. Or you want to use it for summarization, where you have a sequence of tokens and you want to generate again a sequence of tokens, but a shorter sort of summary. Or question answering, where you have the paragraph on which the question is being asked and the question, so two sequences of tokens, and then an answer, which could either be short or it could again be like a sequence of tokens. It could be one word or it could be a sequence of tokens, right? So now, to do this, we need like training data sets for each of these trials. This is what classical or traditional NLP has been about, that for you focus on a task, have training data for that task, and build models specific for that task, at least pre-deep learning, there used to be a lot of heavy feature engineering for each task and try to figure out what are the best features that are relevant for that task and so on, right? But of course, in the deep learning era, everything, this feature engineering sort of took a backseat, but still you needed task-specific data sets, right? And if you want to train it from scratch, right, if there's a separate model for summarization, separate model for sentiment analysis and so on, then it'll take a long time to converge, and it'll also take a larger amount of data to make it really perfect for that task, right? And this labeled data is of course expensive to obtain. Now in contrast, right, we have a large amount of unlabeled text which is easily available on the internet. So idea behind these large language models is the following, right, that just as humans do not really learn explicitly how to do sentiment analysis or how to do question answering or how to do summarization in a language, what we learn is that over our lifetime, we just have a lot of interactions in language, right, for different things, for our basic needs or for education or whatever. And then over a period of time, we learn enough about the language to be able to adjust to a new task, right? And the same sort of analogy here would be that if I take a lot of unlabeled data from the internet and teach the model about language, right? This is what language structure looks like. This is what follows one word and so on, right? So how to do that is something that we will see. But the abstract idea is that if I can just use a lot of unlabeled data, just as we have a lot of unsupervised interactions in our life, right? We don't really our daily interactions are not about, okay, here's a task, do it, and so on, right? So it's just about, okay, we want to ask for something, we ask for a cup of tea, or we ask for food, or we just say that I'm going out of the house to get some work done and so on. So it's all very unstructured. It's not really supervised. So if you have such unlabeled data, similarly, in the case of a model, can you exploit it to just learn a lot about a language? And once you know enough about a language, you could use that knowledge to do these specific tasks that I'm interested in, right? And that's the sort of abstract sort of idea behind these large language models. And we'll see what it converts to, like in terms of a model, in terms of a loss function and so on, in the next couple of videos. So I'll end this here, and then I'll talk a bit more about the GPT model.